Give me Jesus.
There was only 4 kids in my high school who were LDS, and I was the oldest. I was a senior, and Michelle was a sophomore, and they were really active. And then there was some kids that kind of started coming because of Michelle and I. And Cindy, her family was LDS and had been for generations, but had stopped coming, but she started coming. And then my art teacher that I showed you a picture of, her son was a freshman, and he hadn't been coming, but he started coming. So it was the 4 of us. And I was in the band room, and I was in there painting, and there were some other kids in there too from the band, some Christian friends, and they were like, they dated. Those was Carol Hata and her boyfriend. And they said, well, Debbie, we don't really know much about your church, but we'll tell you this. We can see it's made a difference for good. And I said, in you. And I said, what do you mean? And they go, well, your mouth, Debbie. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they said, Debbie, come on. You kind of had a bad reputation for swearing. And we noticed immediately at band camp, it was like night and day. And everyone noticed. And I was like, oh, I really didn't know I had a bad reputation. I didn't know everyone, it's like, oh, there she goes again, and I didn't know it was so obvious that I'd made a change in my life. But it was, and everyone noticed. And they said, whatever else there's to say, we can see you live your religion and it's doing you good. And we respect you for that. And so that meant a lot to me. I'm sorry. I had joined the church because I wanted to know more about Christ than what I already knew. And I wanted to know how to follow him. And I was looking for a church where Christ showed up in the lives of the members. And I'd found that. And it was important that he showed up in my life. That it made a difference for good in me. I mean, I knew it was, but if it wasn't clear to others, then I don't know. Anyway, it became clear, and by the way, I came back from youth conference, and a week later they asked me to be like the vice president of my girls' class at church, and then this was a calling, and then I was like the vice president of my Sunday school class, voted by my peers, my class members, and vice president of my seminary class. And then I was made the lead in the road show, which is like a little play that we put on. And it was like, it was a wonderful experience. I was thrown in to a fast moving current, and I learned a lot about leadership from these experiences. And every week in church, every Sunday in Sunday school class, I was learning stuff. It was months before I could keep my mouth shut and not have it like, you're kidding, what? Because the doctrine was all new to me. And every week it was like, wow, you're kidding, really? And everybody was like, we're used to hearing this stuff, which doesn't sound unusual to us, but wow, I guess it is pretty awesome. And I don't know, it was a good experience. I made some major strides up that mountain that first year. One of the things that happened was I was so not used to the emphasis on family that the church had. And they always asked my father permission for everything that I did. And I thought, why do you have to ask his permission? And I didn't understand, you know, but it was a matter of respect, you know. They wanted to make sure my parents knew what I was doing all the time, and I learned to have respect for my parents in a way that I had never really been taught before. It was hard. That was probably the hardest thing for me. Of all the things that were new and different and changes for me, the emphasis on the family was the biggest one, and I did it because I was supposed to, but not because it was in my heart to do it. And I am so grateful now for the unrelenting emphasis that the church put on honoring your parents and valuing your family, because now I do. And I wasn't naturally respectful of my parents. I wasn't naturally grateful to my parents. And I learned to become that. When I went away to school, I was told by my church leaders to write home often and to thank my parents. And so I did. And, you know, you write home and thank your parents every week. And after, you know, week after week after week after week after week of finding something new to thank them for, you like, wow, my parents did a lot of stuff for me. I had never thought about it before. And, you know, by the end of my freshman year, I remember on Mother's Day writing to my mother, and I filled up one side of the page. I turned it over, filled up another side of the page, started down, and I knew that I wasn't done yet. That I could go on and on and on and on and on about the very specific things my mother had done for me. Not things for being a great mom, you know, but very specific things that I had never given her credit for. And until I was just a pool of tears and weeping and gratitude. Because I had sort of thought my mom didn't really love me. And she wasn't real lovey-dovey. She didn't hug you all the time and tell you she loved you. So I just didn't think she did. And as I went through this exercise of thanking her for something every week, and the list got longer and longer and longer, it was like, hello, what was this if it wasn't love? She just... it manifests in a different way. And so then to recognize that my mom loved me and that she had sacrificed so much for me. And same with my dad. Things that I had just taken for granted for all my life. And if there was nothing else that I got out of my experience as a Latter-day Saint, having gratitude for my parents is one of the most important things I've got. And I'm very, very grateful for that, because my dad died when I was 22, and it has been a sweet blessing to go all these years without resentment and bitterness towards my father that I would have had, because I very distinctly remember having bad feelings towards him before, and when I was in high school, and instead that's all been replaced with gratitude and respect. And I have never stopped learning about Jesus Christ, and that's truly the most important thing about my experience as a Latter-day Saint. Ongoing learning, spiritual learning. Because you learn by study, but you also learn by doing. And there's so much opportunity for service. And I'm telling you, service is the key. Sacrifice is the key. You want to be like Christ. You say you're a Christian. If you want to be like Christ, then think about him. What did he do? Oh, he died on the cross. He sacrificed everything we say we want to be like him, then we're going to have to make some sacrifices. And a church that doesn't require sacrifice isn't a church of Christ. He was a servant. And if we want to be like him, we have to serve others. He loved everyone. He, out of the deep compassion that he felt for his fellow man, his brothers and sisters, he served them. Well, do you think you're just going to be zapped one day with compassion? No. You have to work at it. Compassion isn't just, boing, you're compassionate now. No. You learn compassion and charity and forgiveness and patience. You learn all that from experience. There's commandments, and they're guideposts. They're like our roadmap. The scriptures are full of commandments, and this is our roadmap back home to God. And commandments aren't penalties and punishments and strict, controlling. They're protections. They're guidance. If you follow them, you're going to have a better experience than if you don't. Because God knows what's best for us. And there's no apologies about commandments. I feel like all the churches I had any experience with before were like never wanting to make you feel bad, if you're never trying to tell you what was right and wrong, because nobody wants you to feel bad, and we want you to feel happy about coming to church, and like, oh well, that's all fine and good, but if you aren't taught how to follow Christ, then you're not going to follow Christ, and you're going to have all sorts of rough times in your life that could have been avoided. And God didn't just drop us here and say, oh, well, you figure it out. He gave us everything we needed to successfully return to him. The most important thing of all being Jesus Christ. And because of Christ's atonement, we have a chance. Without it, not one person on this earth has a chance. But because of it, we can take this opportunity to learn and grow and practice and learn again and get back up when we fall down and make mistakes and try again and learn for ourselves what's important. And the commandments, if we would just follow them, we would avoid a lot of pain. But maybe we would learn the lessons really deep down. And so we have to have experiences and find out what's important. And it can take a long, long time. And it's okay. It's okay if it takes a long time. Even though I thought I had so much catching up to do, I'm really grateful that I was only 16 when I found what I was looking for. Because I was young enough, and that year before I left home, that year in the church was critical for me. But regardless of where you're at in your life, if anything I've said resonates with you, God's reaching out his hand to you. The Savior's reaching out his hand to you and saying, come follow me. And he has a really great program. And he hasn't left you all by yourself. And I am grateful for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm grateful to be a Mormon, a Latter-day Saint, a Christian. Thank you for listening. Bye.